Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into something pretty serious that's been making waves. It's this idea about potentially deporting U.S. citizens to a super prison down in El Salvador. And this wasn't just, some random comment. It actually came up in relation to Donald Trump, and it's caused a lot of discussion, a lot of concern.
It really has. And for this deep dive, we're working from excerpts you shared from a YouTube transcript. Karoline Leavitt says Trump is not joking about deporting U.S. citizens from the Ring of Fire channel.
Right.
So our mission here is to really unpack what's being said in that source, get into the details of the proposal, the legal questions, the whole context.
Okay, let's dive in. Where did this whole thing start, according to the transcript? It mentions Air Force One.
Yeah, that's the scene described.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is on the plane, and someone asks him about sending U.S. prisoners, and we're talking American citizens serving time in the U.S. to this high-security terrorist prison in El Salvador.
Okay, and his reaction.
The transcript says he initially responded, "I love it. I think it's a great idea." But almost immediately, he added a qualifier.
Which was?
Something like, "We got to look into that." So right away, there's this enthusiasm, but also an acknowledgement that, well, maybe it's not actually legal. He wasn't sure.
Interesting. Enthusiasm first, legality maybe later. And it didn't just stop there, did it? The transcript mentions a follow-up.
No, it didn't. It describes a press briefing where a reporter asked Karoline Leavitt directly about this concept, deporting U.S. citizens.
And her response? Did she walk it back?
Quite the opposite, according to the transcript. It says she confirmed Trump was, in fact, not joking about it.
Not joking. Wow.
Yeah, and she apparently elaborated, saying he's talked about it quite a few times publicly and also privately. The takeaway from the source is that this makes it sound like a serious thing they're considering, not just some, offhand remark.
So it's being framed as a potentially serious policy idea. What's the justification then? How are they explaining why they'd even consider something so drastic?
The justification Leavitt offered, based on the transcript, is focused on specific types of individuals. She mentioned heinous, violent criminals who have broken our nation's laws repeatedly, violent repeat offenders in American streets.
So the argument is it's for the worst of the worst.
That seems to be the official line presented, targeting the most dangerous criminals.
But reading through the source material, it sounds like the speaker in that transcript had some major doubts about that justification.
Oh, absolutely. Huge skepticism. They don't just take that only violent criminals line at face value at all.
Why not? What's the basis for the doubt?
Well, they bring up past experiences. Specifically, they reference a 60 Minutes analysis looking at previous deportations to this same El Salvador facility.
And what did that analysis reportedly find?
According to the transcript, it found that at least 75% of the people sent there before had zero criminal records. Zero.
75%. With no record.
That's what the transcript alleges, based on that analysis. And it goes further, claiming there were cases of valid residents, people who legally shouldn't have been deported at all, who ended up in El Salvador.
Okay, that context definitely casts doubt. If they supposedly got it wrong with non-citizens, the transcript asks, how can we trust they'd correctly target only specific citizens this time?
Exactly. That history, as presented in the source, really undermines the credibility of the only the worst criminals claim.
Which brings us squarely to the biggest hurdle, it seems. The legality. Is it actually legal to deport a U.S. citizen? Leavitt seemed unsure.
She acknowledged the uncertainty. Yeah, if it's legal, if there's a legal pathway. But the speaker in the transcript, they don't mince words.
What do they say?
They state flat out, 100% not legal. Just totally unambiguous.
On what grounds?
They cite fundamental constitutional protections, violations of due process, which is the government having to follow fair rules, and the ban on cruel and unusual punishment.
Right. Basic constitutional stuff.
And really the core idea, which the transcript emphasizes seems almost obvious, is just, you can't deport U.S. citizens. It's tied to the 14th Amendment, citizenship itself. The transcript conveys a kind of shock that this is even up for debate at that level.
It does feel like a bedrock principle. Now, the transcript also digs into the El Salvador side of things. There's already some kind of arrangement.
Yeah, apparently so. The transcript mentions El Salvador's president has supposedly already made a $6 million deal to accept migrants.
$6 million, okay.
And what's really interesting, or maybe concerning, is the transcript suggests that same president has offered to take more people, potentially, including U.S. citizens, maybe for more money.
Ah, so there could be a financial incentive for El Salvador to be willing to do this.
That's the implication raised in the transcript, that this isn't just about the U.S. wanting to send people away, but also about El Salvador potentially seeing a financial opportunity here. It adds a whole other layer.
A transactional element,
Yeah.
okay? And this leads to another worry raised in the transcript, right?
Mm,
About who exactly gets labeled a criminal.
yes, this is a big one. The concern highlighted is that the definition of heinous criminals or violent people could get stretched, maybe politicized.
Do they give examples of what they mean?
They do. The transcript specifically mentions Tesla protesters being labeled by some as domestic terrorists.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Right. The fear expressed is, if they can be called that, could people involved in other protests, other forms of dissent, also get slapped with the domestic terrorist label?
And if the destination is a terrorist prison?
Exactly. The connection being drawn is label dissenters as terrorists, then justify sending them to a terrorist prison even if they're U.S. citizens. It's presented as a potential slippery slope.
A very worrying potential path. One last point the transcript touches on is the Supreme Court. What's the angle there?
The perspective in the transcript is, well, pretty cynical. It suggests the administration might push ahead with this, even with all the legal red flags, because they feel they have the Supreme Court in their pocket.
Implying they think the court wouldn't stop them.
That's the gist of the viewpoint presented in the source, yeah. A belief that the current court might allow it, despite what seems like clear constitutional issues. Again, that's the perspective from the transcript we reviewed.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together from our look at the source material. We have a proposal, reportedly taken seriously by Trump and his team, to deport U.S. citizens deemed heinous violent criminals to a supermax prison in El Salvador.
Right, but immediately, massive legal alarms go off, due process, cruel and unusual punishment, the 14th Amendment, the basic rights of citizenship.
And the justification that it's only for the worst offenders is heavily questioned in the transcript, based on alleged past mistakes involving the same facility and non-citizens.
Plus, there's this potential financial angle with El Salvador perhaps being a willing partner for a price, which adds another complex, frankly, quite troubling dimension.
And the fear that the definition of criminal or even terrorist could be expanded to include political opponents or protesters.
Yeah. So the core conflict highlighted in this transcript is really stark.
Yeah.
It's the administration's stated goal versus what seem like fundamental, constitutionally guaranteed rights of American citizens. It leaves you feeling pretty uneasy.
It certainly does. Considering everything we've gone over from this transcript, you really have to wonder, what are the deeper implications if ideas like this are seriously floated? What protections do citizens actually have if something like this were ever pursued? It's definitely something to think about, the strength and meaning of citizenship itself. Thanks for this deep dive.